gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis. What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, is it not?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. He looked good, Coach.
Oh, try it. Thank you.
Welcome to Off the Air on a Monday here in the Quad Cities. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It is Wednesday. Boy, where is my days going? Wednesday, February 26th. It is hump day, so it is not Monday. Relax. It is Wednesday. We are nearly halfway through the week. We want to thank everybody who are watching us right now on YouTube, on X. We appreciate that. We're live on both right now. Also, we are in all of the podcasting platforms as well. So if you don't want to watch the show and you want to check it out later, we completely understand that. Make sure you check it out on all of your podcasting platforms. Apple, Podbean, Spotify, iHeart, you name it, we should be on it. So excited to be up and moving. We are getting closer and closer to 700 YouTube subscribers. Really, really close. So if you're watching on YouTube and you're not yet subscribed, please do so ASAP so we can get you rocking and rolling and keep you up to date on everything we're doing each and every day right here when it comes to sports here in the Quad Cities. We have plenty to get to on today's show. Coming up in just a little bit, it is the day after the Iowa-Illinois game. A lot of eyes on Champaign last night where the Fighting Illini knock off the Iowa Hawkeyes, 81-61 the final there. We'll be joined by our good friend Jim Mattson in a matter of moments to break down the Illini's victory and also kind of dissect both teams, both Illinois moving forward as they now eye the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament, and then where Iowa now goes from here with some big decisions in Iowa City coming up in the next couple of weeks. Also, it was a big night of high school basketball. Coming up in just a little bit, Jen Goetz from Pleasant Valley joins us as the Pleasant Valley Spartans are heading back to state for the fourth straight season. And it's a big night at Wharton Fieldhouse tonight, one of the best regionals in the state, right here in our own backyard with Rock Island, Moline, UT, also joined by Pekin doing battle at the Old Brick House. It starts tonight. We'll break down that regional with our good friend Tom Johnston from the Quad City Times, Rock Island Argus, and Dispatch as well. We'll also look at Augusta's big victory last night in the CCIW with TJ as well. So a lot to get to. We mentioned the high school basketball, a big night last night with 4 teams from our area here in the Quad Cities advancing to the state tournament. It was Central DeWitt, Maquoketa, Pleasant Valley, and Davenport North. So congratulations to all 4 of those teams. We did mention Jen Goetz and the Pleasant Valley Spartans heading back for the 4th straight season. We'll talk to her coming up later on in our number 1 of our show. We start, though, today with the big game in Champaign last night. It was Iowa versus Illinois, and really a unique game because Iowa and Illinois haven't played each other in a while when it comes to any sport. They hadn't played in football, and they hadn't played yet in basketball this season. Only one game between Iowa, Illinois, and men's basketball. The women's basketball teams did play earlier in the year with the Fighting Illini winning that one as well, but the rivalry not as prevalent with the expansion of the Big Ten. More teams in the Big Ten, which means Iowa and Illinois don't play every year in football. They don't play next year either, so disappointing there. And not that guaranteed 2 games, sometimes 3 games when it came to playing in the Big Ten tournament, but only 1 guaranteed game this year. And if Iowa doesn't make the Big Ten tournament, there definitely won't be a second game. So 1 big game last night, Illinois coming off a 3-game losing streak with their worst loss in program history to a very good Duke team Saturday night in Madison Square Garden. So you felt like it was a get-right game, and that's exactly what it was for the Fighting Illini. 4 players in double figures, very important for them. Tommy Avicic, really good from the start, scored like 11 of Illinois' first 15 points, really good inside. Iowa, of course, lacking some size inside. Owen Freeman out for the year. So the Illini did a good job, took advantage. They still shot nearly 30 threes. They shot 29 threes, but at least last night they made 9 of them instead of 2 or 3 like they have in the past, and it all leads to a victory for Illinois. And you can see some changes, especially on the offensive side of the offensive side of things for the Fighting Illini. So after the game, here's Brad Underwood talking about his team not just bouncing back, but bouncing back the way they did and making some changes in the process as well.
If you really truthfully knew what went into the last 2 days, it's even that more impressive. From the standpoint of what our guys picked up, we've been trying to make some changes for a while and haven't been able to. So enough was enough. Tommy was back in practice, and we just did some subtle things to I think make some changes defensively, and then to a really small tweak offensively, but we can't give them too much. But for our guys to pick all that up, this is a very young group.
It is a very young group in Champaign. So good for the Fighting Illini getting back on track again. Jim Mattson joined us in just a few minutes to talk more about that. On the Iowa side of things, without Owen Freeman, the Hawkeyes really do need to get big nights from Peyton Sanford and Josh Dix. They didn't get that from either. Peyton struggled 2 of 10 from the field, only scored, I believe, 7 points. I think Josh Dix had 11, but both guys struggling. Illinois doing a good job focusing on them, taking them out. Brock Harding was the best player for the Iowa Hawkeyes last night. 16 points, 4 assists. Did a good job down in Champaign, a court that he's had a lot of success on, winning a state semifinal and a state championship game on. So a nice day for Brock Harding, a nice night. 5 turnovers, and that's unlike Brock. The entire team was 16 turnovers as a team, and that really was the difference in the game. Here's Fran McCaffrey afterwards. Here's a little bit on how Illinois took both Dix and Sanford out of the game, his thoughts on Brock Harding, the turnovers, and a little bit more. Here's Fran McCaffrey.
Yeah, I'd rather not answer that. I don't want to pay a fine.
Fran, what about Brock's performance? Let you guys in scoring tonight.
He was great. You know, he had a couple turnovers that are uncharacteristic of him, but I just love him. The way he battles and the way he keeps coming, the way he keeps fighting. I mean, he's really special.
The turnovers uncharacteristic. What did you see as?
Well, that's the difference in the game. You're right, Tyler. I mean, give credit to them. You know, they were active. They were physical. And turned this over 16 times and turned that into points. You know, if they're not live ball turnovers, some of them were, some of them weren't, but I don't know what the number was. I know it was 10 at halftime. They had points off turnovers, so it's hard to go on the road and turn it over 16 times. I mean, because we out-rebounded them, which is not typically a strength of ours, and it is for them. So we rebounded the ball really well, puts you in a position to be better than we were. But if you're turning it over, you know, that's going to be a problem.
But we start with the game in Champaign last night. It was Iowa versus Illinois, and we turn to our good friend and Illini expert and Quad City, Illinois legend when it comes to sports. I like to talk you up a little bit, Jim. Jim Mattson joins us right now. Jim, it was Iowa, Illinois, and there's a rivalry that we both know about. So before we talk about the game itself, going into that game yesterday, had Tom and Ket on yesterday, and it was kind of like a fun rivalry, but it wasn't what it has been with the matchup and maybe the way the teams have been playing. Going into last night, what were your vibe and thought around that rivalry and that game down in Champaign?
Yeah, I think that for Illinois fans, I think Indiana, Missouri, Iowa are still games that are significant because of the rivalry. To be honest, going into the game, I was thinking about, is this the last time Illinois plays Fran? Fran's been a heated, I don't think anybody takes more abuse from the Orange Crush than Fran because, I think Illinois fans feel like Fran doesn't like it, and they love that. They love to kind of pile on him a little bit. But yeah, there's been some great Illinois Iowa games in both buildings, and it's probably surpassed Indiana over the last few years for importance. And obviously, Missouri's a non-conference game, so it's probably been the biggest rival for Illinois over probably the last 5 to 7 years. You think of McCaffrey and Devontae Williams. You think of Kofi and Luca, and so some of the great games. And yeah, obviously last night didn't have that luster with Iowa really struggling. Obviously, Illinois was struggling going into the game, but there's still something about Illinois Iowa. I'm old enough. Bruce Pearl and all that crap that happened with Deion Thomas. It has always been. I mean, I got a Warren John today for a reason. It's always special to beat Iowa if you're an Illinois fan and an Illinois grad like I am. So, I respect Iowa. I love Iowa. I had a sister go to Iowa, and I always say we still invite her home for Thanksgiving. It's the only time we allow a Hawkeye in the house. Iowa's been a very big rival during the Fran McCaffrey years, and it's kind of weird to think we may never see Fran in Champaign again.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be the old guy that's cranky, but these two teams didn't play in football. I don't know when they play again. They don't play next year either,
right.
which is really frustrating.
I hate
and
it.
you have
You
have Illinois protecting Purdue and Iowa protecting certain things, and it's like these two teams. And I'm biased because of the area that I live in, and
sure.
I get it, but it feels like they should play. And then they used to. You mentioned it used to be they played twice during the regular season, and then probably had to look forward to something in the Big Ten tournament because they were games. I remember it was right before COVID that Iowa beat Illinois up in Iowa City on Super Bowl Sunday, I want to say it was. And Wieskamp had a dunk late. Things got feisty late and all that kind of stuff. And then they turned around in the last game of the regular season. They played in Champaign, and that was a 2-point game towards the end. And then they were going to I was excited going down to Indianapolis because you're going to get part 3 maybe at the Big Ten tournament. Right. And then COVID came and everything shut down. So anyways, my whole point of my rambling is I feel like it's such a fun rivalry, and this was it. No football, only one basketball. No. Iowa might not even make the Big Ten tournament, so they may not play again in the Big Ten tournament. Yes, they played in women's basketball, but I get frustrated by that. The fact that they're not playing twice a year and they're not playing in football is just silly to me. Your thoughts?
Oh, I'm with you. I'm crazy old school. I mean, I still look at the Big Ten scores and I'm like, wait, Washington played a Big Ten game. That's so weird. USC played a Big Ten game. I mean, I still remember I loved my freshman year at the University of Illinois. I'm going to age myself, but it was 83, 84. And Illinois beat every Big Ten team in football. Illinois beat every Big Ten team in basketball. It's never happened before. It'll never happen now with 18 teams. Yeah. But it was so much fun. You played everybody in basketball home and away. If Michigan had a great freshman, you were going to see him in Champaign. If, Illinois, Iowa, the rivalry was going to be twice every year. I mean, I loved the double round robin, and obviously we won't get it again. And as much as the Big Ten West was somewhat embarrassing compared to the Big Ten East in football, it was fun to play Iowa every year and Minnesota every year and Wisconsin every year. Lord knows those games mean more to Illinois fans than Maryland and Rutgers.
Yeah, 100%. So going into yesterday's game, I had Ken Prince on the show yesterday, and he predicted an Iowa victory, and I was like almost fell off my chair. But there was negativity going into this game, especially on the Illinois side and the Iowa side. I always say there was negativity from the Illinois fans, and it was almost still apathy from the Iowa fans where they kind of just expect what's kind of going on. But going into that game, it felt like a get-right game for Illinois. They had lost 3 straight. They had been struggling. Worst loss in program history to Duke. Obviously, Duke's very good. But they got to go home against a lesser opponent that's been struggling and get right. And that's exactly what happened last night, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think it was a little bit overblown. Now the margins of victories were ugly. Obviously, 43 points is the worst loss in Illinois history. But there's a whole bunch of teams. You can line up 300 teams that are going to lose at Wisconsin and to Duke. The Michigan State loss, things crumbled in the second half, but losing those 3 games is not horrific. Losing to a Michigan State team that's probably ranked 11th, the Wisconsin team top 10, 11. Duke, I think, might be the best team in the country. So losing those 3 games in itself was not horrific, but they seemed to lack energy. They seemed to lack confidence. They seemed tired. And I was a little worried about yesterday just because Saturday, New York City, Tuesday, Champaign. But I felt yesterday was huge because now they play 2 games in 15 days. They've got time to rest and heal. And now they're kind of off the NCAA bubble. They should be in the tournament. But yesterday kind of felt like a little, I mentioned all day, I was kind of nervous. I was like, God, if they lose, there's the potential they could go from like a number 2 seed on January 1st to not in the tournament on Selection Sunday, which is just crazy. So there was a sigh of relief when they jumped out to that big lead, 24-11 or whatever, and they played. I think Illinois fans were clamoring for change, and we saw a change on offense and we saw a change on defense. First time down the court, enough of this pick and pop and missed a three. They went pick and roll and missed a dunk, but got to the free throw line. But we saw the pick and roll, we saw the attack, we saw the downhill offense. Maybe it was Iowa centric because Iowa's a little shorter, but they attacked, and on defense they were much more aggressive. Hedging instead of dropping in coverage, and it just seemed like they were more. Change is what Illinois fans were clamoring for, and change is what they got yesterday.
Yeah, and you look at it, and you mentioned getting inside early. I think Tommy had 11 of the first 15 points or something like that. And when Iowa doesn't have, and I know Merez is out for Illinois, but when the one big that Iowa had was Owen Freeman, and he's not out, you don't have to be a basketball genius to figure out where to attack the basketball. They didn't shoot it great from 3 again. I don't think Illinois did. They made some, which is nice. Actually, they made 9, which I joked on social media they were going to make 9 to 15. So 9 of 29. But they attacked the rim more, but then you saw Iowa come back and make it a game close in the first half, which they've done a lot of. I'll say one thing about France's team this year: not the most talented team, and they're missing guys. We talked about yesterday on the show, Jim, but Cooper Koch. You've covered Cooper Koch. I expected him to make a nice impact in his freshman season, and he's missed most of it because of injury. And then you don't have Owen Freeman, you don't have Drew Thelwell, so an undermanned Iowa team. But they always seem to battle. They're playing hard. They're playing for Fran, if that's a thing. So they make that run in the first half. What are your thoughts as things get late in first half and Iowa's kind of hanging around?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it felt like the Michigan State game. Where Illinois, you raced out to the 16-point lead, and by halftime, it's a 4-point game. Illinois raced out to, I think, a 24-11 lead, and then suddenly it's a 2-point game in the first half. And, Illinois had gone to the bench, and the bench struggled. They went back to the starters. They built it up to 7 points, I think, at halftime. But, there was definitely, we've seen this story before. We've seen this movie before when Iowa got within 2. I think I think Illinois fans are holding their breath. They got to win this. They got to win this. And sometimes when you've seen bad performances, you start expecting them. And when Iowa got within 2, I was like, oh my gosh, they've blown this great 10 minutes they started the game with. And but they were able to recover, get their feet under them, and really dominate the second half. And that's something they haven't been very good at either. You go back to the Northwestern game, blew the 10-point lead. The Washington game blew a 16-point lead. They had to hang on for dear life. The Michigan State game, at 7 points at halftime, they wind up winning by 20. We haven't seen Illinois do that much.
Yeah, you look at the Iowa side of things, they've really struggled coming out of the halves. They go to Maryland. They're up 4 at Maryland just a few weeks ago, and then they end up losing by 26. And they didn't come out good in the first half at all. So the first 4 minutes of each half were really bad. I thought it was key for Illinois to take that first 4 minutes of the second half and get that thing to double figures. And then they lived in double figures the rest of the evening, and it didn't feel like Iowa was ever going to make another threat. That first 4 minutes, if it goes from 7 to 3, 7 to 5, then it's going to be a battle. Talk about early in the second half, because I think the game was won for Illinois. I know they won by 20, but in the first 4 minutes of each half were huge, and Illinois dominated the first 4 minutes of each, the first and the second half.
Yeah, I just thought there was tremendous energy in both the first 4 of each half. I thought they came out much more aggressive. I thought KJ played great. I mean, his numbers weren't 24 points or whatever, but he had 7 rebounds. He was diving for loose balls. I think KJ was a little sick of losing. I thought they just played with energy and urgency, which again is something Illinois fans have been clamoring for a little bit. But you're right. I thought it was huge for them to immediately get up by 10. You played with a little comfort zone after that. You played with more confidence after that. And, I thought one of the subtle changes, maybe not subtle, but, I think if you ask any Illinois fan who are the 3 offensive players on Illinois, it's KJ, it's Ivisic, and it's Riley. And they started those 3 and for the first time, I believe. And, I like that. I like to have 3 guys who can kind of get their own and can score. And, theoretically, if they can get Merez back for the Big Ten tournament, which was kind of hinted the other day by Underwood, then you bring in a physical rebounder with 3 scorers, Trey White and Boswell are trending up. You see how life goes, Matt. We're so down on Illinois yesterday, and today I see the rainbow. I see the Final Four again. I booked my trip to San Antonio. Things change immediately, but you can start. Again, winning is that great deodorant. All of a sudden, it's like, hey, this team doesn't look that bad. All of a sudden, so but I like the three offensive guys on the court. I like the energy. I just thought they allowed them to be aggressive. Instead of pick and pop, it was pick and roll. Instead of drop on defense, it was hedge and be aggressive on defense. I thought that was the change. The change was go make a change instead of kind of sit back and wait or sit back and shoot threes. So I like the attack on both sides.
It's funny, Jim, you look at the box score and, Illinois shot 11 more threes were shot by Illinois than Iowa. And if you would have told me that going in, I would have said, Iowa's got a chance. So it's still, I think they're still too shooty, but they did a better job. And you mentioned the balanced scoring as well. And if you're an opponent of Iowa, boy, the scouting report starts with Peyton Sanford and has all year, especially with Owen Freeman out. And he's still been able to go and play well. Illinois held him to 2 of 10 shooting. 7 points. What did you see that Illinois did to take him out? Because if you take out him, if you take out Josh Dix, the Iowa offense isn't nearly as lethal as it's been in years past.
Well, I mean, they did hedge screens. And again, part of that, I think, is scouting report. Illinois all year has kind of dropped on the screen coverage. This game, they hedged the screens aggressively. They tried to be more physical. Other teams, Michigan and Michigan State, who Illinois play next, will see that. But I think it kind of surprised Iowa because Illinois has been very passive against the screen game and has dropped in coverage. And I think Illinois said, hey, we can't let Sanford and Dix get going. And they were much more aggressive with them. We got another great Fran McCaffrey answer. Like I said, I'm going to miss Fran if he's gone. But Fran said, I'll get fined if I tell you what they did on defense. So they were physical. Maybe they mugged him a little bit. Maybe but that's better than just sitting back and letting him shoot shots. And Wisconsin, I know Wisconsin's clicking. Duke, I know Duke's clicking. But God, they made scoring look really easy against Illinois, and Illinois kind of made Iowa have to grind and work. And maybe they got away with a little home court mugging, but they played much more physical.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll talk about what's next for Illinois coming up, but I want to talk to you a little bit about the Iowa side of things as an outsider looking in. And Peyton struggled last night. Josh Dix struggled last night. I thought for Iowa, Brock Harding was the best player on the court. Now, as a biased Brock Harding fan and someone who knows him well, people get cranky about that when I say that. Some people do. Some, obviously. You take away the turnovers, which, trust me, you can't take them away. And he had, I think, 4 or 5 of them. If you take those away, 16 points, 5 assists, played well, 4 or 5 assists, played well, rebounded the basketball. He's become Iowa fans' favorite whipping boy, maybe outside of the Quad Cities. The Quad Cities still loves him, of course. What did you see from Brock Harding last night? And then you remember watching him when Moline won a state championship and all that kind of stuff. From the outside looking in, your thoughts on Brock Harding and the University of Iowa?
Well, I think Brock Harding, to me, he reminds me a little bit of Ben Humrickhouse. Humrickhouse is the guy who gets all the abuse down here. And it's kind of what, is Brock Harding, Ronnie Lester or B.J. Armstrong? No. But is he a very capable Big Ten guard? I think yes. On some teams he might be a backup, but he's certainly a Big Ten caliber guard. You saw that last night. He made a lot of things happen in a Big Ten game, and he's done that several times in his career. I just think we picked, like, Humrickhouse has got to be Marcus Domask. Domask came from the Valley, and he was all conference. Why isn't Humrickhouse? I kind of liked Humrickhouse coming off the bench yesterday. And, he got a couple shots down, obviously made shots, which was nice. But same thing with Harding. I think if Harding was playing with, another guard who could help care, could he be a great backup? Could he be a 2-point guard offense guy? I think he'd be really good. I think he's solid. He's certainly a 6th, 7th man on most Big Ten teams, I think. An energy guy. Bradley recruited him like crazy here. And, I know Bradley kept thinking, he might get a better offer than the Valley. Well, he gets an offer from Iowa. And I think in 2 years he's proven that he's a Big Ten caliber player. You don't hurt yourself having Harding on the court. I mean, is he, like I said, is he an all Big Ten guard? No. there's 18 teams in the league. There aren't a lot of all Big Ten guards.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to look at it as well. Jim Mattson joining us on Off the Air on a Wednesday, a day after the Iowa Hawkeyes and Fighting Illini played down in Champaign. 81-61 the final there. You mentioned maybe being the last time with Fran, and Fran has brought some juice to this rivalry because you go all the way back to the Bruce Pearl stuff, but then you had the Dr. Tom years and some really good battles. It fell off. It did when Todd Licklider was there in the end of the Alford era. There wasn't the excitement that normally. Nice. You got to get a. There you go.
I'm not a cat guy. That's the daughter's cat.
There you go.
So.
There you go. But yeah, I think Fran's brought some relevance and some juice to this rivalry.
Yes.
As an Illini fan and seeing, I look at both sides of it, and there's complaints on Brad Underwood, which I think are crazy, and then there's what's going on with Fran. What are your thoughts on Fran McCaffrey? What's going on with the University of Iowa? And you mentioned it'll be weird if that guy's not back at the University of Iowa next year.
I'm a firm believer in be careful what you wish for. I mean, I will sit here and defend Underwood forever because the end of Weber and the John Gross years, I was playing golf on Selection Sunday. I wasn't even thinking about Illinois going to the tournament. Now it would be criminal if Illinois missed the tournament this year. Well, they missed the tournament every year under some coaches. It's the same way with, Licklider and some of the years before McCaffrey. Iowa, they fell completely off the map. I know this has been a really long year for the Iowa Hawkeyes, but gosh, Fran has brought in some remarkable players. I mean, I have loved watching the Murrays and loved watching Garza and loved watching Wieskamp and loved watching, some of these great players in Iowa. And, I think Fran is, the Freeman injuries hurt him this year and that they haven't put it all together. And maybe they're not as, theoretically, it doesn't look like they're nearly as strong in the NIL game as Illinois and Indiana, some teams spending all kinds of money in NIL. It's hard. So, I don't know what Fran's resources are, but boy, Fran is an offensive genius and his teams have been great. And, I've never seen him real happy, which kind of adds to the allure of Fran. I mean, he always looks like he's upset, but he has made it a very good rivalry. And, I mean, Iowa has always been a hot ticket because the Hawkeyes usually have great players, and you got to give Fran a ton of credit for that. And, again, remember what it was like before Fran. It wasn't very good.
Yeah, Jim, you mentioned the NIL stuff, and it's wild because we've been talking a lot, especially on this show, about the decision that Iowa's athletic director Beth Goetz has because, and a friend of mine, Chad Leistico, with the Des Moines Register, put out a really good piece where just laid out the facts of everything. Didn't put his opinion in everything, but just these were the facts. And it's amazing nowadays because you and I are old school. I look at Fran's track record on the court and his success, and I say, he's had a bad year, and last year wasn't great, but he's got these recruits coming in, and he feels good about this. Probably he's got equity. You know what I mean? He's got equity as a basketball coach that, you can survive a year or two like this. The flip side is now everything's a business, and it wasn't always that way back in the day. Yeah. And you look at the NIL is the lowest in the Big Ten. I think Tom Kakert said on our show yesterday, Iowa has $1.5 million for the basketball team. We're going to get another.
I don't like the cat. See, I might leave the door open, see if it'll run away. I'm not a big cat guy.
I'm not a cat guy either. But you look at it, Jim, and the NIL game. Iowa has $1.5 million total. There's an Illini guy that probably is making that himself. Yeah. But big business wise, and I don't know if you've heard these, but some of the butts and seats numbers at Carver Hawkeye Arena this year are tickets actually scanned. They announced one thing. It's like, and I know you're a Cardinal guy, but it's like when the St. Louis says it's their 1 millionth straight sellout and you see empty seats. You're like, wait a minute. The Iowa-Minnesota game this year, actual scanned tickets were 2,800. 2,800, 19% capacity at Carver Hawkeye. Flip that, and Ked brought it up yesterday. If you had Kirk Ferentz at Kinnick Stadium and 10,000 people showed up, I mean, they'd probably fire Kirk on the spot. So it is a business, and I don't think people realize that. I mean, you don't look at things the way we used to and say, all right, this is his record, this is what happened, this is who he has coming in. It's that flip side of there's also this huge business side of things that Iowa's struggling in, both in attendance and NIL and all those kind of things as well. It makes for a difficult decision, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I always say when you lose the fan base, you lose the program. It's really, really hard to regain the fan base. And, you could have a great recruiting class in NIL next year, Freeman, Harding, and some of the guys come back and you could win. And I know fans will come back, but boy, when the fan base is that 2,800 is shocking to me. I've been going to Carver Hawkeye since it opened, and that's sad. And when you lose the fan base, it is really, really hard. And that number, but again, how attractive is the job if you're 18th out of 18 in NIL?
Yeah.
You're not going to get the hotshot young coach to come in there if he doesn't think he can win. And the coaches now understand that if you don't have the NIL lined up, and if you don't have, you're not going to win. You've got to have a lot of resources and a lot of money to attract coaches and to win. And I'm not saying settle for Fran because this job's no good. I still think Iowa's a great job, but you've got to put your money where your mouth is too, and you've got to say, look, we're going to commit $5 million minimum to get players in here because right now, you've seen, the Perkins of the world and the guys leave Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't happen very often in the Big Ten where a productive player leaves a Big Ten school. But if the money's not there, these kids, they got 4 or 5 years to make a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
Believe me, I'd be running for some of these jobs too with some of the paychecks they're offering. If the sports director job opened in Des Moines and they were offering that kind of money, I got my pen right now. I'll sign right now. I'm just saying that it is a business. It's a business, but part of the business is what are you putting up for resources to allow Fran or the next coach to win?
Yeah, I think the first question out of any coach, and again, I'm not putting cart ahead of horse, so who knows what ends up happening. It's going to be an interesting 2 weeks, 3 weeks in Iowa City.
Right.
But if you are a head coach in any sport, at any university, but especially at the University of Iowa, isn't your first question to the athletic director, what's my budget? Because in today's day and age, so let's say there is a coaching change. Let's say there's a coaching change in Iowa City. Players are automatically allowed to go to the portal. They're automatically, once there's a coaching change, the portal opens up for them, and most of them probably gets in. So who knows how quickly you make a change, who you retain and all that, but you're probably not only going to have to keep a roster, you're going to have to retain or rebuild a roster, and that's going to be pricey in the world of college basketball right now. So, you talk buyouts and then buying out another coach and then NIL, that's just the thing. It's not a pro-Fran, anti-Fran thing. It's just, it's a different, and it's changed so quickly, Jim, but it's a different, we could sit here, you do a great radio show down in Peoria. 5 years ago, it was what they do on the court and what was the results-based thing that would happen. And now it's completely different and even wanting to get coaches. It's not even about I want to spend money on this coach, but I also have to spend money and give him the ability to put a roster together to do it. So it's just a crazy time of year. Jim Mattson joined us on Off the Air on a Wednesday. Before I let you go, I want to talk about Illinois' future in the next couple weeks. You mentioned just 2 more Big Ten games left. They go to to Michigan this weekend. Yeah. And you look at, I think they were projected a 7 seed yesterday. It's going to be an interesting 2 big games because you could get to a 6 seed, a 5 seed and get a little breathing room, or you could slide a little bit, maybe go back to an 8 or 9 seed. It starts with a game at Michigan. There's no love lost between those 2 programs either. I know a different head coach and all that, but a big game this weekend for Illinois on the road at Michigan.
Yeah, there's 2 great opportunities for Illinois, Michigan, and then Purdue at home. There's 2 games left in the regular season. If they won one of those, I think they'd stay clear of the 8-9. That would give them another massive quad 1 win. So there's a lot to play for. And I actually think they match up pretty good with both teams. I know Michigan's got the 2 7-footers, but I'm not sure they have great players at the other 3 positions. And, I think Illinois matches up okay with Purdue's guards. And I think Illinois will have a chance in both games. But, if you lose them both, you're probably an 8-9. And, you know who you play in the second round. If you're an 8-9, you play Duke, and that didn't go so well. You play a team of that caliber. So there's a lot still for Illinois to play for. I kind of got myself excited earlier, but if they can get Merez back and again, when Illinois played well in December, they had both Trey White and Boswell playing. Maybe it was just the Iowa game, but those guys played well yesterday. If you can get them going again, if you can get Merez back, I don't think it's stupid to say this team could, as a 6 or 5 seed, could be dangerous.
Yeah.
But as an 8-9 seed, you're going to have to pull off a mighty upset in round 2. So because I do think the Houstons, I still like Alabama a lot. The Auburns, the Dukes, I do think they're a step above Illinois, 43 steps above if you're Duke. But I mean, I do think that those are the teams you want to avoid if you want to make a run. If you want to make a Sweet 16, Elite Eight type run, you better not be an 8-9 seed. So these games are important. And, they might have a chance to make some noise in the Big Ten tournament, but I really think these two games, if they could get one of them, would be huge.
Jim, I always look at the year of COVID where the entire NCAA tournament was in Indianapolis. Iowa won their first game as a 2 seed, and then they ran into Oregon, and they were a 7 seed. They didn't have to play their first round game because VCU got COVID, so they kind of went into – and it was just a bad matchup. And Oregon ran them out of the building. And
how about the year Iowa ran into was it UConn? No, Villanova. Remember the year they played Villanova in round 2? And it was the same thing. It was like, oh my God, you ran into a buzzsaw. You know?
But I can see Illinois being that 7 or 6 seed that can make a Sweet 16 because of the talent they have on the floor. Has it been put all together yet? No, all those kind of things. But I think this year more than ever for Illinois, when those seedings come out, when those pairings come out, it's going to be really interesting because I think there are good matchups for them, and I think there's bad matchups for them. So it'll be interesting to see how they get that moving forward. Before we let you go, we always talk a little Illinois women's basketball. It was a tough week out in California for Illinois, but we kind of thought it would be. I mean, that's a tough road to go and play 2 top 5 teams on the road in California. We've talked in recent weeks. I talked with Ked yesterday. I think Shauna Green's doing an amazing job when it comes to Big Ten Coach of the Year and all of that kind of thing. They get a chance to get back on track and get in the right direction as they get ready for the NCAA tournament as well.
Yeah, I honestly thought they played terrific against UCLA and USC. I thought I thought it was one of their better weeks. I mean, they went out there and sauna style. They battled their brains out against 2 teams that are probably both better than them and more talented than them and healthier than them. And I thought Illinois showed some incredible fight in both games, and I was really, really impressed. And Sunday is senior day, and Kendall Bostic and Mackenzie are a couple seniors that were recruited by a previous coach, stayed. Really changed the landscape of this program. So obviously they got Genesis and some of the players who have come on board with Shauna, but this senior class is pretty special for Illinois. They have really changed the outlook of Illinois women's basketball. I understand Shauna is a big part of it, but some of the kids that have endured the old coach, the losing, the winning, celebrate them on senior night because they've done a wonderful job. I thought Illinois played really well last week. And again, that's a little bit like matchups. They played 2 number 1 seeds. They played USC and UCLA, who are both number 1 seeds likely. And they gave them a fight. So that gives you thought that, they could beat a 2 seed or a 3 seed or a 4 seed in an NCAA tournament. I was really encouraged despite them going 0-2.
Those 2 losses were a lot closer than what the final score indicated. I think that's the big thing. If you're just watching and you check a box score and you're like, but like if you watch the actual games, they were in the basketball game and they continued to battle. And to their credit, they did just that. Jim, I'm disappointed this week. There's no more Valentine's Day candy over your shoulder.
No,
does that mean you took care of it?
My daughter made muffins. She got some real good muffins over here. But, I think the Valentine's candy all left. It's all gone, I believe. But
is that you?
Yeah.
Did you do the most of that?
No, I think my Monmouth daughter took quite a bit of candy with her back to school. She always says, Dad, I'm like in a dorm. I'll just put the candy out. Kids will eat it. I'm like, yeah, but if it stays here, your dad will eat it.
Yes.
But somehow it left and went back to college, I think.
I love it. Well, Jim, we always appreciate you wearing the orange today, and rightfully so. Your radio show should be a lot more positive today. Will it be? Will the Illini fans take a deep breath?
I said yesterday that if Iowa won, I was taking the day off because I didn't want to hear the sky is falling, fire Underwood. I wasn't going to play that game for 2 hours this afternoon, so I will be doing the radio show this afternoon, and I think people are getting off of the Titanic in Champaign. They feel much better. Thanks to Iowa for that. Like I said, and that's one of the keys here too, is that, Illinois looked really good against Minnesota. They didn't follow it up. Illinois looked really good against Iowa. They got to follow it up. But hopefully yesterday was the start of an upward trend for an Illinois team.
The Underwood stuff is crazy. Do you know what his buyout is? For anybody on your show that thinks that he should be fired, it's a $30 million buyout.
Is it?
$30 million. That's what Ked told us yesterday. 30, like Franz is 4.2. It's a $30 million buyout. that man's not going anywhere, nor should he be going anywhere, because remember, John Gross was on the sidelines not too long ago, and they weren't going to the NCAA tournament. So enjoy the show. Enjoy the show today. We appreciate you. We'll talk again real soon.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Great talking to you.
All right. Jim Mattson down in Peoria. Plenty of smiling faces down in Peoria these days because the Fighting Illini, and down to Champaign as well. Fighting Illini get back on track. They get a victory over the Iowa Hawkeyes, 81-61, the final score yesterday down in Champaign. Well, we are just getting warmed up on a Wednesday here on Off the Air. Coming up after the break, we'll head to the high school level because Jen Goetz and company knocked off or cut that. Well, we are just getting started.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Wednesday here in the Quad Cities. A fantastic time of year, both college-wise in basketball and, of course, on the high school hardwood. Yesterday, in Iowa, the ladies punched their ticket to state. And I always say one of the things I miss about local TV is the fun interviews afterwards, including what seemed to be my annual interview with the head coach over at Pleasant Valley. Jen Goetz joins me right now. Coach, the Lady Spartans are going back to state for the fourth straight year. First and foremost, good to see you and congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you asking me to come on this morning. And it was hard to wake up because I'm tired, but it was a good reason to wake up and all of that. So definitely proud of my girls this morning.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the game itself in a second, but I kind of joked, but I'm not really. Like, I've talked to you every single year usually after. And afterwards, I'm usually like 5 minutes afterwards putting a microphone in your face and like a camera in your face and rocking and rolling. So it's set in a little bit, but I always stress that, and you always stress that, these are all different. Nothing's guaranteed in this sport. To do it again, it's always different, it's always fun, and it's always special, isn't it?
You know, it really is. And honestly, I think this year has even a more of a different twist. I don't know what the right word is for that, but the senior class is pretty special to me, and they're good kids. They do things the right way. They've experienced everything you can arguably in high school, conference titles, state tournament appearances, state championships. And I selfishly, like, for me, it was the whole team, but it was that group. Like, I did not want them to end their careers with a loss on our home floor. And so, like, that was just inside of me the whole time, to be honest. And I just know what this group has had to go through. People who have kind of followed our journey this year. We are 100% a different basketball team right now than what we were in November. And there's just so many little things behind it. And I'm just beyond proud. I'm proud of the 15 girls on the floor. I'm proud of the support we've had from our whole community. just proud to be a Pleasant Valley girls basketball head coach this morning.
Talk about that growth during the season, because I think that's one thing as a coach that maybe people who aren't coaches don't understand, don't realize. Yeah, it's always good to have success and the banners are great and all that kind of stuff, but watching your team grow and go through the peaks and valleys. I mean, there's valleys and you got to work them through that, and they got to get through those as well. Talk about the journey every year, because you mentioned you're a better basketball team now than you were in November, and that's got to be gratifying, not just for yourself, but for the young ladies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I honestly, I got asked last night right after the game by Quad City Times if this was the beginning of the year, would your team have won tonight's game? And I think I took about 2.2 seconds to answer of no, we wouldn't have. And we wouldn't have because of players, and we wouldn't have because of coaches, because I wasn't in the right. I was all over the place, I felt like, at the beginning of the year at times. So I just think it's like a beautiful thing. I think it's so easy to sit back and we do it as sports fans. I do it all the time as a sports fan. Like, you watch a game on TV and you think you know everything about the team. Like, I know I'd solve everything. But when you see it every day in practice, when you have these conversations with the girls and you know the hard work they put in to fix some of those things they need to fix, and then you put the whole team together, like, it's just so much more rewarding when you know all of that, from the actual basketball skill to the mental hurdles to all of those things that have nothing to do with the sport, off the court stuff they have to deal with, and as the time was winding down last night and I was watching our girls getting ready to celebrate and all of that, there was definitely tears in my eyes and just a lot of gratitude in my heart as well. So.
Yeah, I talked to Ty Taylor from WRMJ about high school sports yesterday on the show, and we talked about, I love all of them. It's so much fun, and covering them for so long. Each one's different. But for some reason, I do have basketball as a soft spot in my heart because, man, the environment, and you know what it's like, Coach, that environment and those games, I always talk about, like, those games fly by. They fly by for me. I can't imagine it as a coach. It's first quarter. Next thing you know, it's fourth quarter. So that environment, and to go through that again and talk about last night's win, because it's a very good team in town. To have Waukee come across state and play, and it's a team that you might not have as much knowledge about that you have other teams from another side of the state. Talk about last night's challenge and what it was like to get over the hump.
Yeah, first and foremost, you talked about the game went by fast. I felt that was the case until like the entire fourth quarter for us last night. I felt like we were, I don't know if we had 8 minutes or 18 minutes on that clock, but yeah. A team like Waukee, I said it multiple times, like, you look at their record and they were 13-10 heading into the game last night, and people are like, oh, PV should definitely win if you look at records. They play in the best conference, top to bottom, in the state of Iowa. And I'm not bashing anything else. That's just the reality of it. That level of competition that is always at the CIML, it's good. And that's why we try to go up there once, twice a year to play those type of schools, because you have to expose yourself to that. And you may lose, which is fine, but you have to learn from that. So we were not fooled by their record. We knew what they were going to bring to the table. And I just thought, you get to the regional final game, I honestly think it's the hardest game to win. I think it's harder than any state game. I just think it's like that breaking point of, like, what this one win does, and getting to that pinnacle of getting to state is such a big accomplishment that there's so much more pressure that goes into that, and the longer I coach, I just feel like every regional final game is so different. I go back to like 4 years ago, our first trip that we made, it was like lights out. We were playing Hannah Stolke at Cedar Rapids Wash, and it's 60-70 and all. I don't know where the defense went. Where last night was 100% a defensive battle, and not because it was bad basketball. It was good, two very good defensive teams with good basketball IQ and very athletic, and it was hard to score points. And so I think that's the fun of it as well too, But one big thing about last night's game, and I said it before, is I just thought in the fourth quarter when, we got up, I think, about 11 or 12, and the grit that my kids showed, because we didn't play perfect in the fourth quarter. If you were there, like, we had missed shots, we had defensive lapses, we had some turnovers thrown in there, and we had a lot of they hit key shots, and I'll give them that credit. And that lead got down to about 5 or 6, and we had multiple times where we could have crumbled, like 100%. And all the excuses were there to do it, but not this group. It was next play mentality. It was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get a defensive stop. This didn't go well. I'm going to get a defensive rebound. Like, all of those things were just that next play. And I just think it's a powerful life thing. You can't go back and change the mistake you made, but you can learn from it and grow from it and move on. And I was just really proud of my kids' grit last night.
Jen Goetz joining us right now on Off the Air, head coach over at Pleasant Valley, the Spartans. Heading back to state, you talked about the seniors, and I didn't cover it on TV this year, but I feel like if I had a dime for every time I said Reagan's name, I would be able to retire, because she seems like that player that's been around for she's like Jess Settles when it comes to men's basketball. She's been around forever. Legit, though, she's only been there for 4 years. Jess actually played more, but and I don't want to just single her out as the senior because that senior group is special, but when it comes to that young lady, Coach, she's won a ton of basketball games. When I look at her, I think winner. When you talk about Reagan, what comes to your mind?
I said it earlier. She's a gamer. When stuff's on the line, the chips are on the table. I'm choosing her every day of the week, and that's not just a political coach. You have to say that. There's a lot of good basketball players in the state of Iowa, point guards especially. But this kid finds a way to get it done, and she doesn't just do it selfishly. That to me is the beautiful part. It's not even like her just taking over games scoring wise and dropping 45 points a game. The way she makes other people around her better is a beautiful thing to watch. It's beautiful. And she's done it for 4 years. And last night, I mean, she would tell you this. I've been pretty hard on her defense for a lot of the years. And offensively is what people are going to talk about last night, is her shooting, her creating ability, her assist, which 100% that is accurate. But to me, I thought her defense last night was probably the best defensive game she played in her career. Her ability to guard penetration, to contest threes, all of those things, it was beautiful. And that's the one example to me of finding another way to help us win. So I joked about it earlier. I'm going to call the union to see if we can get her a 5th year. I don't know, maybe post-COVID. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. She's been around a long time, and beyond grateful for that. Beyond grateful.
Yeah, she seems like that young lady that when the game is on the line, some players shy away from that. She feeds off that. She wants it, which is
she feeds it, yep.
Coach, you can't teach that, can you? Isn't that, or can you? Is that something that just is inside of you?
I think you can teach it a little bit by simply continuing to give them that confidence. I have confidence in when the game's on the line and the ball is in her hands, I know she's going to make the right basketball play. It doesn't mean it's always going to work. It doesn't mean that the ball's going to go in or any of that, but she's going to make the right basketball play. And honestly, I remember watching her, and she's 2nd and 3rd grade at youth basketball tournaments. She was the same way. This is not she just started doing it when she walked in high school. She's been doing this for years because, like you said, she doesn't shy away from it, which I think is a powerful place. A lot of kids, they want it, but they want it when it goes well. It's the ability of, if you do it and it doesn't go your way and you quote unquote fail, you got to handle that too. And she does that too, so she puts herself out there, and we'll enjoy the ride the next week and a half for sure.
We're going to talk about Ankeny Centennial. Just one more question about last night. What was that locker room like? And you got to let them, and I know you got to let them enjoy what they did, because that's special. Talk about letting those kids enjoy it. I'm sure you're already going to be breaking down film here probably in another 3 or 4 minutes when we're done. But what about last night, and then how quickly do you move on? You got to let them enjoy what they accomplished last night, I'm sure.
Matt, 100%. And I think sometimes, especially in sports, we want to flip the page so fast to next game, next season. I got to get this player going. It's you know what? These moments aren't guaranteed, and a lot of work and blood and sweat and tears goes into it. So you need to be where your feet are at, and you need to enjoy them. So we made it very clear last night. Enjoy it. I think they all went to Culver's and had ice cream, and that was awesome. I think we were on the court for an hour after the game, honestly, still taking pictures with everything. And I know some people would look at that and be like, that's kind of ridiculous. You know what? Enjoy the moment. Enjoy it. They deserve that, So, and honestly, we as coaches, I didn't last night. It was enjoy the moment. It was to be there, enjoy it, talk about the fun of it, all of it. And this morning, the alarm went off a little early this morning, but it's part of it. I know what the flip side feels like. If you don't win that game, I know what today feels like as well. So I'll take this over anything else. But we're off today, and we'll have practice obviously tomorrow, and we'll go over all expectations, and here's our plan for the next week, and then we'll get after it. But they deserve it. They deserve to enjoy that.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of high school sports is this is what they've worked for so years. And when you're old, like us, maybe coach, I won't age you like me, but you look back at those things and that's the things you remember maybe the most. Moving ahead, another really good basketball team. I think Pleasant Valley, the 5 seed. So it's a 4-5 matchup against Ankeny Centennial. I know it's early, coach, and I know you don't know everything about them, but looking a little bit of ahead, another really good opponent waiting for you guys in Des Moines next week.
Well, I'm going to be honest. This one, number one, I have the utmost respect for Centennial and their coach, who's Coach Zhang. He actually won his 700th win earlier this year, so he's great. He's amazing. But this is a basketball team that we've played the last 2 years, and they've beat us both years in the first game of the season for us. And this year we lost to them, and by no means they beat us. 100% credit goes to them, but we played horrible. I'm going to be honest. The girls would agree with that. So I think it's kind of a full circle moment here that we're going to see how much better have we gotten since November 30th when we played them the first time, and where's that redemption kind of look at? They're experienced group. They start 5 seniors. They've been at the state tournament all the time. They play in the CIML. So the moment isn't going to be too big for them at all. But the beautiful thing is I have kids that have that experience too. So I'm really excited about it. It's a good matchup for us. It'll be 2 very hard fought teams. It'll be a close game. So, the hairline will go a little bit, but it'll be fun. That's for sure.
No, it should be a blast. What's the game time for it? I didn't do my research like I should have.
11:45 Monday morning.
11:45 Monday morning. I want to talk to you about this conference because you mentioned the conferences around the state, and I do think this area gets slept on. It might not be the best of the best, top to bottom, and all those kind of things, but you look last night and you watched Central DeWitt, you watched Davenport North, you watched Pleasant Valley, all punch their ticket to state, and then just up the road in Maquoketa, not a conference team, but a Eastern Iowa, our area type of team, have a fantastic year. They're going to state for the first time ever. Coach, we talk about this every year, but the basketball in this area is really, really good, and you want to show the entire state that, don't you?
Absolutely. And honestly, I can't, not Maquoketa, but for DeWitt and North, our games are competitive 100%. And sometimes during those, there's not a lot of love lost, but like last night, before the game, we were kind of going through who's playing who, just, kind of keep the mind at ease with the coaches. And we all said DeWitt and North, we 100%, we want them to win. That's not a, we want to win and hope everyone else loses. We want to showcase what the talent we have in this area and in our conference, because we do have good basketball over here. So the fact that in our conference we have 3 teams that are going, awesome. That is wonderful. Maquoketa, I didn't know that was their first time ever. That's awesome. They have a very good basketball team as well. So I think it's great for us. I honestly, when you live life with a grateful heart and you're happy for other people who deserve it, good things will happen. So definitely happy for all those programs, their coaches, their fan bases. And as of Eastern side, the MAC will definitely be supporting them this upcoming week.
Absolutely. Big picture question before I let you go, Coach. I talked with Deanne Kramer a few weeks ago on the show about women's sports, and I look at women's basketball and the growth it's made. And my assumption that I tell a lot of people is that it's always been really good, but just recently and thankfully, the spotlight maybe has shown more on the sport. Everybody evolves. Kids get bigger. Athletes get bigger. Athletes are bigger now than when I was in high school and all that kind of stuff. But the sport has always been really, really good and entertaining and fun and fundamental and all those kind of things. I just don't know if everybody knew about it. Is that a safe assumption that maybe more people are realizing that these girls can go simply because of the Caitlin Clarks, the things that have happened in recent years that have shined more attention to the sport?
I think you're spot on. I do. I think there's always been this I don't even know how to describe it, a stereotype, I guess, with women's basketball about all the things that we can't do. Oh, they can't dunk. They're not as fast as the boys. It's all negative. Well, my old Ambrose coach, Coach Ted, always said, I look at what players can do, not what they can't. So when you watch the women's game, you're right, you're not going to see too many dunks. Just get over that. But you can watch beautiful ball movement, solid defense, the ability to make the extra pass, the high skill level, how athletic some of these kids are right now. it's remarkable. Like, it's phenomenal. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And I would agree. I think if anything, whether you love Caitlin Clark, you're okay about her, you don't like her, I don't care. But she's brought all these eyes to women's basketball for everybody, not just her. Like, you're now talking about the Sabrinas, the Brianna Stewarts, the Nafisa Colliers. Like, you're talking about other players because your eyes are watching that. So I completely agree with that take. I hope it only continues to build girls basketball, because obviously I'm biased, but I just think the sport of basketball teaches you so many things. Yes, basketball, but beyond that, life skills, life lessons that I don't think you can get anywhere else. So I hope that continues to build at the lower levels and all the way up.
Yeah, I coach a 4th grade team, like I told you before we started, and I tell them to always watch basketball. This weekend, watch basketball. Yep. And I'll tell them a lot of times I'll find myself saying, and it doesn't have to be the NBA stuff. Go watch the women's basketball game on TV and watch the fundamentals and watch the back cuts and watch the defense and things that you might not see at the NBA level. You definitely see at this one. Last one for you. A lot of great players in the league this year. And I felt like going into the year, I'm like, man, like this individually wise might be one of the better years when it comes to talents at North and what you guys have. And then Lauren Walker, which nobody talked about, had an amazing year. And talk about the individual talent, because I don't want to start comparing if it was better than, maybe the North girls and the girls that you've had in the past and all that kind of stuff. But it feels like, along with the quality of basketball, the individual talent for what these girls are doing and going to the next level, including a vice girl that's doing very good for you at Marquette this year. It feels like they're continuing to move on individually to that next level as well, maybe more than in the past.
Yeah, I would agree. And honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with they're getting exposure outside of the Quad Cities / Eastern Iowa. And whether it's Des Moines, the Chicago, across the country, who knows? But I just feel like their games have continued to rise. And the more you can get outside, and talk about this with the girls all the time, like the more you can get outside your little bubble, the more you realize, there are people better than me. This is another higher level. And then it makes you want to raise your game as well too. So I would agree. There's some talent here in this area right now that it is pretty good. There just comes a point where you're like, you're ready to go to college now. Bye. I'm done coaching against you a little bit, but no, and it's awesome. It's good. And again, it's good for little girls to watch that as well too. Like, that's who I want to become. That's what I see them do, and so, yeah, it's a pretty cool time right now in women's basketball.
When they're your own, you're trying to get an extra year. When they're not your own, you're trying to say, get out of here.
Ship them
Coach,
off. Get them out.
I've really appreciated this. Like I told you last night when I texted you on the phone, I'm like, I don't have any time restraints. So I always tell people like 15 minutes-ish, and it ends up going a lot longer. But I enjoy the heck out of this. Best of luck on Monday. Get the job done. I know there's that possible maybe a MAC championship possibility. I know you guys don't look that far down, but as media dorks, we get to do that. Maybe a North and PV championship game would be great. Best of luck, and hopefully we can do this again real soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Matt, so much.
All right. Jen Goetz, the head coach of the Pleasant Valley girls basketball team, joining us on a Wednesday here on Off the Air. We got a lot more to get to. It's a big night coming up on the Illinois side of the river, including one of the best regionals for the boys at Wharton Fieldhouse. We'll talk with Tom Johnston about all that and a little Augustana basketball as well right here after the break.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Wednesday here in the Quad Cities. A great time for basketball on the college hardwood. March is almost here, and for the high school kids, the postseason is here already. We're joined by a very busy Tom Johnston. TJ, it is that busy time of year. Everything all hits at once, doesn't it? On both sides of the river. It keeps you busy.
It's always busy, isn't it, Dazzo?
Yeah.
But this is a great time of year, man, covering sub-state girls basketball games this week, covering boys basketball games this week, trying to do some justice to the college scene as well. But yeah, it's a fun time right now, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Each night has something different and something fun. And tonight, a lot of focus. All the focus will be on Wharton Fieldhouse, one of the best regionals in the entire state in 4A, and it starts off with Rock Island versus Pekin, and then UT versus Moline once again. Before we get into each matchup and talk about the teams, our local teams, when you look at that on paper and a place to go tonight for high school basketball, man, it doesn't get much better than that, does it?
No, it doesn't. And you know what? This is going to be a nice throwback night, with 3 of the 4 local teams from the Quad Cities gathering at the old brick house, the way it used to be years and years ago, where, if you wanted to be a survivor, you had to beat somebody, next door. And in order to move to sectionals. So, it's a little bit of an old school feel to it. Tonight with, Pekin trying to get in there and upset what could be a very interesting Friday night at the old brick house too. So, whether if it's Rock Island against Moline, that's going to be a classic. If it's, happens to be Rock Island against UT again, my guess is UT is going to want to prove something after Rock Island handled them at the Panther Den a few weeks ago. So, man, it's going to be some very entertaining basketball at Wharton this week.
Yeah, you mentioned it, TJ, because it does have that old school vibe. I don't think any of the 3 local coaches love the old school vibe because, there's some good teams. And each of those 3 teams proved in the Western Big Six that they could make a run in this postseason. And after this week, probably one will be left. I'm hoping Pekin, no offense to anybody who's watching this in Pekin, but hopefully it's not Pekin. That's
yes,
that
long reach that you have down to Pekin, Dazzo.
I'm huge these days. I got the whole state of Illinois.
You keep telling yourself that.
No, so hopefully it's a Western Big Six school, but there is some frustration when it comes to the fact that they are all feeding into the same regional. It'll make it great for fans, but only one will survive at the end of the week.
Well, and that's too bad, too, because you've got 3 20-plus win teams, boom, 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 right across the Quad Cities. So, I'm not going to say it sucks because somebody's always going to complain to the IHSA. Either it's 3 Quad City schools in the same regional or somebody having to travel, hundreds of miles for a regional game, even though UT's Andy Say feared this was going to happen after Rock Island handled UT a couple weeks ago at the Panther Den. Actually, I think it was the night before the seeding meeting was held, and he just had a feeling that was going to cost his team in the seeds, and instead of going down to normal community and staying away from either Rock Island or Moline in the regional would have been down at Normal Community West playing down there, and then not seeing either Rocky or Moline presumably until sectionals. But you know what? Sectionals isn't going to be any easier because they're feeding down south, and guess who's waiting? Quincy.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be a tough road for any of our local teams to stay alive in postseason into a sectional title game. So,
yeah.
But it's going to be some good basketball here this week.
That's
That's what we got to worry about right now.
And you're right, because you take one step at a time and you look at it. We'll start with the first game on Wednesday and Rock Island and Pekin. And boy, you got to be really impressed. Had Mark Polite on the show last week after ending the Big Six play with a victory over Quincy. And he let his guys celebrate that. They deserved it. They didn't win a Western Big Six championship, but a really impressive victory to end the season. They've got to be coming into the postseason with a ton of confidence, TJ, because they've had a great year, and it's capped off by maybe their most signature of victories against a really good Quincy team.
Absolutely. Rock Island is the only Illinois school to beat Quincy in the regular season this year. So, that's a huge accomplishment. That's a very good Quincy team that won the Big Six title. And, Rock Island, I don't know how Mark has done it with that group. More power to them. And hats off to them for doing it with basically 5 guys because they do not have a deep bench over there. So Mark has pulled the right strings at the right time and gotten the most out of that group. So, you gotta think they're going to be favored against Pekin this evening. And then however that Moline UT game comes out afterward, that's going to be another dandy. UT gets spanked by Rocky a couple weeks ago and then turns around and goes to Moline and beats the Maroons on their home court. So, Go figure. That's high school basketball right there, baby. Nobody can figure out what's going to happen. So, I won't be surprised at any of the results that come out of Wharton this week.
Yeah, TJ, you mentioned it. It's a conference full of good coaches. And that top echelon, and then you maybe add Sterling in. Those top 4 teams, add Sterling in. I mean, it was a dogfight each and every night. And you look at it, Mark Police had some really good coaching seasons, really good years. They don't have coaches of the year. They don't vote on those or anything, but might be one of his best coaching jobs of his career because as you mentioned, and he'll freely admit, they might have flown on the radar a little bit entering the season because the marquee name wasn't there, and he's just got his guys to buy in, and they've bought into the team concept, the defensive end of the court, and they're having a fantastic season.
Absolutely, they are. I mean, they had one starter returning. That was Austin Zulu, and you throw a couple football players in there, throw a sophomore in there, and all of a sudden you've got a group that he has working so well together, and they play a full 94-foot game. And they get after people, and it's absolutely it's fun to watch them play as hard as they do, but they're smart because they know they have to stay out of foul trouble. And that's where the coaching comes in, and give Mark and his staff all the credit in the world. But then you turn around and you give Sean Taylor and his staff all the credit in the world at Moline for doing what they're doing. You give Andy Say and his staff at UT all the credit for what they're doing. So it's made for a fun Western Big Six basketball season.
Yeah, no, it's been really entertaining. Tom Johnston joining us right now from the Quad City Times, Dispatch, Rock Island Argus. He basically does it all. When you look at that second game, and Rock Island can sit there and take care of business, hopefully, get the job done against Pekin, and then watch Moline and UT beat up on each other. It was just last Tuesday that, we mentioned UT goes to Moline and maybe gets that signature victory that they needed. And we talked to Mark Polite a couple times this year. earlier this season, and he mentioned that like UT's coming. I mean, here's the Rocky coach, and he said, guys, watch out, because what Andy Say's doing over at UT's coming, and they've kind of arrived with that victory on Tuesday, but now they got that tough task, and they always talk about beating a team twice in a week or whatever it would be, twice in 8 days. They got that tough task of going back to that gym and saying, hey, remember that win that you did that was a signature win? Now you got to do it all over again. It's an interesting scenario for both schools.
Well, and you know darn well that Sean's going to have his Moline bunch ready to go, and they're going to do everything they can to keep from getting beat on their home court 2 games in a row by arguably one of their biggest rivals. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a chess match. And unfortunately, I didn't get to see that UT Moline win, so I'm not real sure how UT pulled that off. But man, for them, that came right after getting absolutely smoked by Rocky. So Andy obviously got the attention of his kids and got them back on track to go in there and pull off that victory, even though it was a victory a game late for seeding purposes, and it created this rematch. But you know, they got it done, and they've been getting it done too. So you know, what are they, 22-7, I think, right now, UT. So, you know, that's a really good season for them. So good season for anybody, shoot. So, you know, like I say, I'm not going to be surprised by any way that second game turns out later this evening.
You know, TJ, we started by talking about the seeding and having them all in one place. And I get the coaches. I understand what they're saying, and they'd hope that 2-3 teams with the seasons they have would have opportunities to at least 2 of them win a regional. But what it's done is made for a fun week of basketball for high school basketball fans. Talk about that for a second, because I know you love Wharton Fieldhouse. I love Wharton Fieldhouse. I don't know if like Rocky and UT will love it this week, but it's a great venue for high school basketball. And we got 3 really good teams. You mentioned boom, boom, boom. You go right across the Avenue of the Cities or whatever into Rock Island, and 3 really good schools that are playing good basketball. It sets up for a fun week of basketball for any fan. You could be a UT fan, Moline fan, Rock Island fan. Me, a basketball fan. I'm going to go tomorrow night. That should be a lot of fun.
I hope it brings out the best of all of the fandom in the Quad Cities. And what's this Avenue of the Cities, Randazzo? You're old school. It's 23rd
Avenue. There you go.
It's 23rd Avenue, damn it.
TJ, did you used to cruise the Avenue? Is that a thing back when you were young?
I plead the fifth.
I love it.
That and the one-ways downtown Davenport, but don't tell my folks that, because they didn't know.
I love it.
It's a good thing cell phones and cameras weren't around back when I was in high school, because that let us get away with a lot more stuff than we should have.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yeah, but no, I hope there's a great crowd at Wharton tonight. There should be. There's absolutely no reason for there not to be. You know, I don't think there's any conflicts going on this evening. No college basketball. No, I mean, Iowa, Illinois played last night, so that's not on TV. You know, everybody get out and go watch some very good high school basketball up at Wharton this week.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And then you get to look forward to a Friday night where hopefully Rock Island takes care of business, and you get a Western Big Six battle for a regional championship. Will be a lot of fun on Friday night. TJ, before I let you go, had Jordan Delp on the show on, my days are all getting confused, Monday, because they're coming off that signature victory against Illinois Wesleyan, and they finished the season so
Saturday,
well. Yeah, and they get that first home game at the Carver Center in the postseason since 2019. And I know it doesn't seem like that long ago, but 2019 was a little bit ago. To get that victory,
I got to check that. I think it was 2020, wasn't it? Because I'm pretty sure they hosted in the COVID season.
Oh, okay.
So, but anyway, it's been too long.
TJ, don't correct me on my show. This is the Matt Randazzo show. Don't you dare come on here. No, I'm kidding. But regardless of that, you look at what they've done, and well, let's first talk about last night. They get the job done in the CCIW, an impressive victory against Elmhurst. They win, I think, 92-78. They continue to play their best basketball at the right time of the year. A great victory for Augustana last night.
Absolutely, it was. I mean, it was an electric atmosphere at Carver Center on Saturday against Illinois Wesleyan. It was a huge student section, which was awesome. It wasn't the loudest the gym has ever been, but it was loud and it was fun. And then tonight they went out and took care of business. Beat Elmhurst for the third time this year, which is not an easy task.
Yeah.
Got a huge effort from Sean Kelly off the bench, and Elmhurst was going to make sure that Tyler Knuth did not beat them. And, they held him to 12 points, but it opened the door for other guys to step up. And Sean Kelly was one of those guys, had a career high 29 last night in that win. And, playing some good ball. Like JD said, it's going to be a totally different atmosphere against Illinois Wesleyan on Friday night up at Carthage in that first semifinal. It's Augie got Illinois Wesleyan's attention on Saturday.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's going to be even harder to beat them a second time around within 6 days. But, once again, I wouldn't be surprised with any result because Ron Rose has a very good team down at Illinois Wesleyan. They dropped to number 16 in the country this year after that loss, but boy, it's a team that's definitely deserving of being in the, not only CCIW tournament, but the NCAA tournament. And the way Augie's playing right now, I'm not sure I'd want to be playing them in a one and done situation at this point. So,
yeah.
Hats off to Jordan and the staff down there. They have, found some things that are working, and they've got a deep roster, bunch of veteran guys back, and he's getting the most out of them. He's, pulling the right strings and playing the right cards at the right time, and he's got them playing some very good basketball right now.
Yeah, they've won 7 of their last 8. 5 of their last 6 since Jordan Delp came on my show for the first time. I don't want to take full credit for everything, but I deserve an assist for giving the mojo of the off-the-air mojo is what they call it.
Well, it's your show. You can do whatever you want. I have been taught that lesson during this conversation. So whatever you say, Matt, whatever you say.
Hey, before I let you go, talk on JD for a second, because there was no more of a home run hire that I can think of in my life than Jordan Delp on the sidelines at Augustana. People know what he's done community-wise and with basketball around this community for so many years, and then go back to his alma mater, a place where he bleeds for. He loves that place, and to take over that program. And here we are in his first full season, and boom, instant life breathed back into that program. Talk about that, because, and JD personally as well, as good of a human being as he is a coach, which makes it so easy to root for those guys.
Well, and he's so intense. He reminds you of somebody else who had tremendous success on that Augustana sideline with the a little pit bull in them, I guess you could say. But he cares so much about the program and about the guys in it, and he wants the best for everybody, which is why, when he's out on the recruiting trail, guys need to pay attention, because this is going to be a program that's going to be back on the national D3 map real soon, if it's not already. So, more power to him and the guys that he's got working with him. I know those guys are out beating the bushes and not only trying to find the best local talent, keep the local guys at home, but, do what has to be done to get the right recruits in. And this is going to be a big year for them because they're losing, what is it, 8?
Nine seniors, I think. I think
Is
9.
it 9?
He
9
mentioned
seniors?
9 the other day, so I think 9.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah, with Tyler, 9. So there's going to be a lot of minutes up for grabs in that program next year, and he better find some guys who can come in and get the job done for him. But I'm sure he will, and he's going to go above and beyond to make that program a winner, and do no matter what he has to do in order to put some more W's up there. So, and this is what's great. It was hard for me to imagine any other Augustana coach doing this, but after I was finishing up down there, I think maybe was it Saturday? Maybe I can't remember. Recently, a game down there, filed my story from down there and packed up. I thought I was the last one in the building down there, and the lights are still on in the gym. So I ducked my head in, and there's Jordan Delp, head coach, Augustana College men's basketball, in the gym, breaking down the bleachers so softball could come in for practice the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, how many other coaches on campus, head coaches, would be doing that for another program at that school? And that just he does what has to be done, and that's just his mentality. That's where it comes from, and that is his work ethic. That is what spurs him on. And the kids see that, the guys see that, and they know they want to play for him.
TJ,
they know that he's putting it out there, and he expects it out of the kids, and they're willing to give it to him. So
the only other thing that tells me is that the school's already afraid of John Nelson. That's the only thing I get out of that, is that they knew that John wants his stuff ready when he wants his stuff ready. Hey, before I let you go, it's at Carthage on Friday night. What seed is Illinois Wesleyan?
Illinois Wesleyan is 2. Carthage is 1. Wesleyan 2. North Park 3. Augie 4.
So why is Augie playing 2 seed Illinois Wesleyan? Wouldn't it be 4-1?
1-4. Okay. I guess it's your show. You can call me out on this.
No, I don't know. That's who they're playing. They're playing Illinois Wesleyan, and it's at Carthage. Yeah. I wonder if Carthage is the 1 seed. Carthage won the league title, so they host. Yeah, they're the 1 seed. But then, you know why? Because it was the lowest remaining seeds. Okay, that makes sense. So the lowest remaining seed is below.
So North Park must have lost.
Yeah, that must be what it is.
Last night, I did not check that score yet. So
that's got to make sense.
Yeah, North Park must have lost.
Who'd they play
in the other quarterfinal game?
Who'd they play?
That would have been North Central.
At Carthage, we got some familiar faces at Carthage as well, don't we?
Colton Sigel.
Yes.
He's a senior up there. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. He's basically their 6th man.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So he's had a good season. Good run for him up there, and yeah.
North Central knocked off North Park with a 3-pointer with 4.8 seconds to go, giving them the victory.
Oh my gosh. Holy cow.
Yeah, so they get top seeded Carthage, and now and Illinois Wesleyan, and you know what? That's a good gig for Augustana, because yes, Illinois Wesleyan's tough, and to beat them twice in 6 days ain't gonna be easy, but it's not at Illinois Wesleyan. You know what I mean? It's a neutral site, so that's an advantage for Augustana. I'm sure Augie will be ready to rock on Friday. They'll be ready to rock on, would it be Saturday for the championship?
Saturday night for the title game if they get that far. Yep.
And if you're wondering on coverage, TJ Online always has you covered when it comes to Twitter and updates and all those kind of things. And if you're looking for stuff from this regional, Wednesday night, so Thursday morning, and then, of course, Friday night, and then Saturday morning, Quad City Times, Rock Island Argus, and Dispatch. TJ, you're killing it, young man. I don't know, and I call you a young man because I think it's keeping you young.
No, this job is killing me, Dazzo. That's all there is to it. So,
well, you know what?
Yeah.
Trust me, people appreciate it. And remember that out there. TJ's working his booty off right now, trying to get as much coverage as can be done. You're doing an awesome job. So go to Wharton Fieldhouse, and whether you go or don't go, check out TJ's stuff in the newspaper the next day.
I'll have you updates online tonight. So go to Twitter and we'll keep you abreast of what's happening at the old brick house.
I love it. TJ, I appreciate you. We'll do this again real soon. Thanks for the knowledge.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Dazzo.
All right. Tom Johnston doing a fantastic job. A big night at Wharton Fieldhouse night. Get out to the old brick house and check out some fantastic basketball games. 2 big regional showdowns and, of course, a regional championship up on Friday night. Well, we're just getting started here on Off the Air. Much more to get to right after this.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addictive salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Wednesday here in the Quad Cities. Wednesday, February 26th. The month of February quickly ending, and March right around the corner. March Madness, a ton of great stuff to get to. One thing we didn't talk about today at the top of the show that I wanted to point out or to bring up, Iowa State Cyclones with an unexpected tough loss last night at Oklahoma State. So they've now lost 2 straight, obviously dealing with some injuries and some of the best players being out. But I still think the Cyclones are a really, really good basketball team, and I expect them to do some big things in the postseason. But I expected the game against Houston and loved the way they played in the second half last night. Otzelberger will get those guys back on track when they get back on the hardwood again. Tough night for Iowa State. We mentioned Iowa and Illinois, the big game down in Champaign. It was the Fighting Illini winning that one 81-61, your final in that one. So the Illini fans today around the Quad Cities with some bragging rights. Illinois now in the NCAA tournament. That'll get them locked in. They're like a 7 seed, right, to a 6 or a 5 seed, or you lose both of those games, maybe you go back down to an 8 seed. Or a 9 seed, and then you have to worry about that 1 seed in round 2 of the NCAA tournament if you win your first game. So plenty to play for you for the Fighting Illini, and that's a big game because Iowa needs to get into the Big Ten tournament, and I don't know if 6 victories are going to be enough. So I think they need a win. And then you look at next week, they host Michigan State, a really tough test. And then they go to Nebraska, probably an NCAA tournament team or a team that's going to be playing for the NCAA tournament live. So a tough test for them as a tournament to extend that season out at least through the Big Ten tournament. You want to go to Indianapolis. And then, of course, plenty of decisions and news to be talked about after the season when it comes to the University of Iowa and the men's basketball program. Also today, we want to thank Jen Goetz, the head coach of Pleasant Valley, the Pleasant Valley Spartans, their girls team heading back to the state tournament next week for the 4th straight season. Also, congratulations to Central DeWitt, Ron O'Brien's crew, to Davenport North. They're heading back as well. And Makokata heading to state for the first time in school history. So congratulations to all of those schools. We'll continue to chat with them and get you updated with them as they get ready for the state tournament next week coming up in Des Moines. Also, we want to thank Tom Johnston as well. Big night at Wharton Fieldhouse. It'll be Moline, UT, and Rock Island all in action at the Brick House. The first game is Pekin and Rock Island. The second game is United Township and Moline. UT beating Moline 8 days ago, last Tuesday. So we'll see if they can do that again at Wharton Fieldhouse once again and get a punch their ticket to a regional championship game, which would be on Friday night. The winners of those games will play on Friday night as well. So great to talk with TJ about that. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Also, congratulations to Augustana, the men's basketball program, with another victory in the CCIW tournament. They'll play in the semifinals coming up on Friday. So congrats to the Augie men as well. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we're going to start looking to baseball season. We'll be joined by my good friend and catching instructor for the entire Boston Red Sox organization, Tyson Blazer, will be on the show tomorrow. We'll also track down a few more coaches as well. A lot more to get to. 2 more big shows before we hit the weekend once again. And of course, looking forward to the month of March with March Madness as well. Also excited, starting next week, we'll welcome some new sponsors to the family as well. And if you're interested in sponsoring Off the Air with Matt Randazzo, please reach out to me, direct messages and all that kind of stuff. And of course, we'd love to chat. So thank you guys so much for watching. That'll do it for a Wednesday edition of Off the Air. We will see you guys back here tomorrow for a brand new show.